Good evening, students of Conversation 3. Here we are again. It is week 9. I'm in the process of giving you feedback. I know the university is asking for you to evaluate the class, and I owe you some feedback. As usual, I think Conversation 3 is one of the most pleasant classes to teach because all of you are mature and you're self-sufficient. So honestly, sometimes I forget that I'm teaching Conversation 3 because I get a lot of emails and questions from younger students, and basically the Conversation students just study away and do their work, and I don't hear from them. I only hear from you once a week, but except I don't hear from you because we don't see each other in class. So it's almost like whenever I get to Thursday, because I don't have class Wednesday. Every time I get to Thursday, I'm surprised we have Conversation 3 class. But anyway, the other classes have gotten their feedback already, and I'm working on yours too. So please just wait a little bit longer, and you will get your feedback on the 6 assignments you did. For the most part, you did well. I'm going to give you positive, and I'm going to give you some constructive feedback. There's really not any negative feedback necessarily, unless you didn't do the assignment. But I'll give you some constructive comments to try and help you improve for the exam. And I will also point out the things that you did well, because some of you have written some really good answers. So today, our topic is, the chapter is called Step by Step. Basically, the topic for the exam is you need to explain how to do something. So this is a little bit different than some of the other topics. There's different types of topics that you need to handle when I'm asking you questions. There's the, comparative question, choose this or this. There's the, story kind of question where you have to talk about something that happened to you in your life or describe yourself, like the introduction one. Perhaps explain something, what it is, but this is how to do something. So one of the things that's very important when you're talking about how things are done is you need to pay attention. If you want to learn how to do something, then you have to pay attention to exactly how it's done. And it goes for most things that the more attention you pay to detail, the better the result. You probably have some experience with this by now. Studying is a good example. You can choose anything you want. The typical types of topics students choose are, the most popular one is food, because you have a recipe and you have a bunch of ingredients, and that's a list. And then there's cooking instructions, and that tells you what order and how to do everything, the temperatures and how to combine the ingredients, what to do to them in order to make something that you want to eat. And if you don't follow them well and you're not careful, it tastes terrible. You can burn it, or you can make it too salty or too sweet or sour or any number of things. Trust me, I know, I cook a lot. And unless you're some sort of cooking genius who can just sense, I've never met anybody like that. You really have to be precise. One of my hobbies used to be, I used to homebrew. So I used to make beer. And when you make beer, you have to put all the ingredients in at certain temperatures, at certain times, and then you get a certain flavor and a certain type of beer that has color and a texture and a body and a nose, a smell to it and everything. And if you mess up, especially if you mess up in being clean, if something gets dirty in there, it's a fermentation process. So, it's the same thing as yogurt or kimchi. If something gets in there that's not supposed to be in there, the bacteria in the fermentation process ends up producing something from that contamination, and it ruins your kimchi, it ruins your yogurt, or it ruins your beer. So that's kind of like chemistry, if you're going to talk about something like that. But it doesn't have to be some food-related or fermented or beverage-related thing. It doesn't have to be something we eat. It can be something that we do. I mentioned studying already, but lots of things require a lot of attention to detail. One of the things that I really loved to do when I was young was play Lego, and every Lego construction set comes with a manual, and you need to open the manual and you need to follow the steps and put the pieces in the correct places in order to come up with the final product. Now, I would, again, you know the criteria, you need to talk for a couple minutes, so if you want to talk about how to do something, choosing something really, really specific that you can explain in 30 seconds isn't going to work very well. So it's probably better for you to choose something, not just like one Lego set, for example, because that would probably only take you 30 seconds or less to describe how to do that. Instead, you might talk about how you built Lego in general and describe that. Even if you were not, you can talk about the manual, using the manual first, but after you use the manual, you may decide that you want to build something else. So you can tell me how to build Lego without using a manual as well. And that would, of course, extend the length of your answer quite a bit. So that's the kind of thing that you need to do, is you need to choose something that has enough information or requires enough steps or has multiple aspects to it that you can discuss. So I have no problem talking a lot. You can probably tell even through the camera, even by watching me on YouTube, that I'm a talkative person. Originally, at the beginning of the semester, it was kind of hard just to talk without an audience or anybody at least one person listening. But I have become comfortable with it, so I can talk and talk and talk pretty much indefinitely until I lose my voice. So when I give you an example, just remember, sometimes I try to keep my answer closer to 2 minutes just so I can give you an actual concrete example that you can use. But sometimes when I tell you an example, there's way too much detail there. Some students are actually giving me answers that are much longer, and I love to hear the detail or read the detail or listen to the details, but for practical purposes, just remember, if I comment in your feedback that your answers are too long, that's simply because you've written a whole page. It may be written well and the answer might be great, but I don't have time to give you more than 2 minutes each answer, so you have to be more efficient, or you have to narrow it down somewhat from what you've done. So keep that in mind. Even if I talk to you for 5 minutes about something, which is probably going to happen right now, if I was doing my exam, being tested by a professor who required me to answer in 2 minutes, I would have to only take part of my answer or narrow down my answer and remove some of the things that were not necessary. So, attention to detail is important. Instructions, you can call them instructions, steps, methods, procedures, and you can get these things as lists or on the internet, in blogs, in YouTube videos. You can get them in actual physical manuals. You can get them in PDFs. They're everywhere. These things are everywhere. So this is my hobby this spring. Other than YouTube, this is my job, so I can't call it a hobby, but I have been sort of working with things, with cameras and my computer a lot, but this is really closely related to doing these lectures. But on the side this spring, I have been doing gardening, because last spring I also did gardening. So I'd like to give you an example of how to talk about instructing somebody how to do something. Now remember, in the textbook they give you lots of vocabulary and specific words that you can use to do small things. So I'll try and do that too, but you can also look at the sort of big picture thing. So in the spring, as you know, lots of people like to plant things. It's not just farmers. Contrary to what people believe, as I was growing up, I just never thought of doing it myself. But last year I did it, and it worked pretty well. I had some successes and failures, but this year I wanted to grow more stuff. and not just have some flowers and a couple, sangchu, lettuce growing in my garden, but to do something more ambitious. So basically what you need to do, you can just go to the market and you can buy small plants and you can just transplant them, right? So let me talk about that first, because that's kind of related to what's in the textbook. When you want to just do it in the easy way, you just go to the Yusang Shijiang, the Yusang farmers market, or what do you call it, local market? I'm not sure how to translate Shijiang exactly. But anyway, you know what I mean. Yusang Shijiang. You go over there. There's some usually older ladies. Some of them are middle-aged, but they have sort of garden shops where they have trays and trays of different plants. And you look at them and then you say, I want some tomatoes. And they say, okay, it's obed won each one. And you say, I want some strawberries. And they say, it's chanan each one. And you say, you want some sangchu. And that's ibed won, each little cup. So it's just these black trays. You may or may not have seen them. But they just kind of take some scissors and they cut a row off, or they cut a couple off. And you take them home. And then you have a choice of where you want to put them. In my case, I don't have a lot of space. This year I'm actually I'm renting, using some land, so I have more space. But you can just do this on your veranda, or you can just use it on your windowsill or the edge. In my case, I live on the first floor, so I have a little bit of space just beside my windowsill. So I go out there and I have my trays. You got to be careful. You don't break them or anything, but they're pretty tough, and you need to plant them as soon as possible. So you take these things, and then you basically you take the cup and you pinch the bottom of it gently, and you push the soil, which is sort of it's turned into like a sort of hard square or cube, because the roots have all tangled up and given it some consistency. So all you have to do is kind of pinch the cup in the bottom, and then you can push the whole root in the bottom of the plant out. And then you get a big pot. Make sure you look up the particular plant, how much space it requires. In my case, I have a strawberry plant in a pot, but clearly my pot is too small. So the strawberry plant is growing all over the place. So I made an error there. But you need to kind of find out how much space it needs. Lettuce, the Korean sangchu or romaine lettuce, it doesn't need much space. You can put them almost like 5 centimeters or 6 centimeters apart, and then just cut them off as they grow. It's pretty easy. You can just grow them in your villa, in your one-room apartment. I don't think the dormitory really wants you to grow plants in your room, probably. But if you're renting in Gundong, you could do this. So all you need is a certain depth and a certain width of soil. You stick the guy in there, and then you get some soil, you fill up the pot, stick it in there, cover it up, press it down gently, and then pour some water on it, and watch it grow. And there you go. You got your little garden going there. I'm going to probably, I don't have any time right now, but as this semester ends here, I'm going to upload videos of me doing stuff in my garden, because that's a very popular thing on YouTube, and why not, right? Because I love sharing my hobby, and I watch other people's videos, and everybody's garden is different, and there's all kinds of cool techniques you can use. So here's something I do. I prepared this specifically for you guys. So this is just a yogurt cup. My kids usually eat these things. It's Yoplait. And this yogurt cup, you're not supposed to bring props to the interview, by the way, but for presentation purposes, this works pretty well. This is just a Yoplait yogurt cup. This has I poked 2 holes in the bottom of it. This is just like the black tray that the ajumas sell you, or ajushis. I shouldn't say it's only ajumas. It's the middle-aged women or middle-aged men that sell you the stuff in the market, but you can just make this yourself. And all you need, where's my bag of soil? All you need then is some soil. Here's just some soil with a bit of nutrients in it, some bone meal. And you pour the soil in there. There's my gardening glove. It's my gardening glove. And you just stick the soil in there, and then you can plant a seed. I have all kinds of seeds. These seeds are just from Daiso, and there's a morning glory, and garden balsam, and rose moss. And I have a bunch of these things growing in my garden now. You just stick a seed in there, and then put it near the window where it gets some light. Give it some water every day or every couple days. Keep it moist, and then you got yourself some flowers. And the whole package of seed costs only 1,000 won. If you buy these flowers at the store, you're paying at least Ochan won, $5 or more. So there you go. It's not that hard. Anyway, maybe that's a little bit of a preview of what my urban gardening channel or videos are going to be like, but this is actually directly related to our topic here. So I chose to talk about how to transplant and to plant small seeds to get them going in your house. That's what my choice was. So you can choose whatever you want. You have to string, as I told you before, it's kind of hard to write the way that you would speak. But some of you are doing it very well. Just try, if you're going to use what you write in a closely, then it should be more like the way you're going to talk. If you're just writing down ideas and then you're just going to flip over the paper and you're just going to talk about the ideas and keep the points in your head, that's fine. If you're looking for something more like a script, but I don't want you to memorize, but if you want to get familiar with the sentences and how you're going to say something, then try to write it down the way you would speak. I had a few people write things that sounded very scientific, and that's not, if you get technical and you write a piece of writing that's really formal, it's probably not going to be very comfortable for you to say. And you might have to memorize it, and then it comes across as memorized. And that's not what the point of the interview is. The point of the interview is to get more comfortable conversing. If you want to make it into more of a speech, that would be a different thing. Speeches are not the same as interviews. So you need to be relaxed, and you need to be more flexible. And try to talk about the topic in a familiar way with good vocabulary still. Like I was using certain words like pinching and garden balsam is the name of the flower. Those kind of things are helpful too, but you don't have to memorize everything. You just have to sort of have a structure to follow, and then you can handle the question a little bit differently every time without too much nervousness. Okay, now, if you come across somebody like me who's just starting gardening, I will give you some tips, and I'll try and tell you how I do things, and I'll probably tell you some things that aren't quite right either. But you may come across somebody who has been gardening, for example, or anything else, but somebody who's been doing something for 40 years. And then they know everything, or they think they know everything, and they behave like they do. That's the main thing. Maybe they do know almost everything. Like if you're Gordon Ramsay, if you know who that is, he's a famous British chef. He knows. He's an expert. He's more than an expert. He's a world famous chef. He probably can't learn anything from a lot of people, but that doesn't mean he automatically needs to behave around people that everybody else is stupid and he knows everything. That kind of person, if the person behaves that way, it's not very nice. Even though you want to learn from this expert person, just the attitude kind of turns you off. And that's what we call a know-it-all, okay? So this could happen. You can find somebody who's a good teacher. A good teacher probably lets you make some mistakes. You can't be perfect right away. It's just not the way things work. It doesn't matter if you're a robot or a human being. There's going to be mistakes that are made. So I usually get advice and have somebody watch me do something, and I mess up, and then I realize the mistake, and I improve as I go. That's also called learning the hard way, though, because the best way is to listen carefully and then do it and follow the instructions carefully, And then there's less chances of mistakes and less chance of getting hurt or wasting time or money or stuff like that. But yeah, I guess it's partly my personality. I get impatient, but it's also something that some people prefer just to have the experience themselves, and then that helps them. It just sinks in better, and so that they can, execute whatever sequence of steps or control the situation a lot better once they've found out what doesn't work. That's what I'm trying to say. I need to find out what doesn't work so I can do what works. Those might be excuses too, but I think that's true for some. In some cases, you just need to do it. You can, for example, you can explain to somebody, this is how you ride a bicycle, and this is what you have to do. And you can teach them for 3 hours. And then you can put them on the bicycle, and they're just going to fall down. They're not going to be able to do it. They just need to ride that bicycle and get a feel for it, a physical sense of what's going on, to get their balance. And you can just be as good a teacher as you want without the practical element, but it won't make a big difference until the person actually gets some tangible experience. So it's up to you if you want to talk about. It's up to you, whatever you want. You can choose your own topic, but make sure you explain about it and you say what to do. And you don't have to say step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It doesn't have to be numbered, and please don't do that, because that's not the way we talk. That's the way you read a recipe, and that's the way you read a Lego manual. But if you want to explain to somebody about it in a general sense, or in just focus on certain things, just use, and then you do this, and next you do that, and after that, and before that, use those transition words instead. Don't use first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh like that, because it's boring, and that's not the way we talk. Okay? And that is the end of this lecture. So please just give me a little more of a grace period before I send your emails. They're coming. They're on the way. And this is actually Tuesday. So I am a couple of days ahead with your video lecture. So I'm just trying to get those emails out to you. And after that, we will start talking about what presentations are going to be like towards the end of May, because we have no classrooms. So you will have to do a presentation at some point before the end of the semester. And I'll explain to you how that's going to go. But for now, just relax, wait for your feedback, and keep following the video lectures. And I will see you again for week 10 next week. Our makeup lecture is not this weekend, but the following weekend. And that's the last makeup lecture. Okay, thank you for listening, and have a good night.